Hello and welcome back to the Football Heritage podcast. I'm your host, Rory Bryce, and today I'm joined all the way from Appalachia by Stevie Leszyk.
How's it going? Thanks for having me on, Rory.
It's great to have you on, mate. Really fascinating episode we've got this week. We're talking about a new soccer federation that has been established in America to represent the region of Appalachia, and I'm sitting here with the founder right in front of me, so it's going to be really fascinating. I'm really interested to hear what you've got to say and where the idea around it came from, because there's a lot of different context around it as well that our listeners might not know about, and I certainly don't know about as well. But first of all, Stevie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So, out of the womb, I became a soccer player and fan. I grew up in a hotbed of soccer. I'm not from Appalachia myself, but my dad is, and I still have family there and friends throughout the region, especially northern Appalachia. It's kind of like a home away from home for me. I have about an hour and a half commute right now to the western foothills of Appalachia. But anyways, I've started a club team before. I've played for elite amateur sides. I played college soccer over here. My playing days are kind of behind me, and I really took to coaching. It's a great way to stay involved in the game. I also run a supporters group in Louisville, Kentucky. That's called Metro Ultras. We support our local 4th Division side. And a few days ago, I ended up just reaching out to Unrepresented Sports, really excited about the World Cup event that they're trying to throw next year in London. And I mentioned in the email, I was like, look, I'm trying to grow the cause, especially here stateside. And I just happened to mention, like, closer to home, I can help. Appalachia doesn't have a team. And when you think unrepresented, it really doesn't get much more unrepresented here than it does in Appalachia. So I kind of right away sent a follow-up email after I was trying to volunteer and get involved with Unrepresented. I was like, hey, how about I just enter a team for Appalachia? Like, let's get this going. Let's grow the game. I mean, I think the California Federation kind of fizzled out, and Cascadia hasn't played a match in quite a while. So I was like, let's just go for it.
And why not as well? Of course, what you said there, it doesn't get much more unrepresented than Appalachia, I think, is probably one of the most true things I've ever heard on this show before, and you're absolutely spot on. So just for our listeners, of course, Appalachia is the region which, broadly speaking, covers the Appalachian mountain range in the eastern coast, if you like, of the United States of America.
So it's kind of disputed where the foothills begin and ends. For sure, it does take up the full state of West Virginia, and then bits and pieces of 12 other states. And there's a list on our website, that's teamappalachia.wordpress.com, with a form for prospective players and staff. For the player side, we do require that they were born in one of those counties that are listed. It'd be awesome to have one player from each state, having 13 states. That's a unique opportunity that we have here. So it doesn't reach all the way to the coast, but it is one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world, and it's just such a beautiful area. I highly recommend, if anyone is it's a quick drive from New York City to the Allegheny Mountain Range, which is part of Appalachia, and it's really it's having a resurgence, and I'd love to be a part of it for sure.
Yeah, it's a very beautiful area, and I think a lot of people obviously associate it with that. It's stunning, it's visually beautiful, it's gorgeous. Some of the nature walks you can go on are absolutely spectacular as well. But of course, and as you said, in terms of an underrepresented or unrepresented sort of element around it, of course, West Virginia comes to mind, what formerly would have been probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, mining state in the US. And like we've heard with so many other, towns, villages, countries, when the industry goes, then a lot tends to follow it, unfortunately. And that's very much been the case with West Virginia over the last couple of decades or so. And unfortunately, it's in a bit of a slide at the moment, should we say. So that unrepresented element certainly comes into it. But of course, being a geographic region that's so kind of well known, Appalachia has always had a very, very distinct identity around it as well. And its people have a very distinct identity too. But we'll get on to all of that later. First of all, I want you to tell me what inspired you to basically come up with a soccer federation that represented Appalachia.
I was just writing an email trying to get involved with unrepresented sports to help any way I can, because when I was a teenager, I wanted to get into sports journalism, and I actually wrote an article for this news platform that was called the non-FIFA News Agency. So I had been following non-FIFA soccer for most of my life now, actually, and I always was kind of sad about the fact that I can't get too participated in the movement, because the only teams in the U.S. in the past have just been California and Cascadia. So those are really far away from me, and I just wanted to bring it closer to home and help as much as I can. And like I said, I mean, it doesn't get much more unrepresented than Appalachia. It really deserves a spot in the non-FIFA world because of its distinct culture. It has a very distinct landscape that is defining the region. A lot of it's abandoned or wilderness. It has distinct dialects, slang. Like you said, mining has exploited its land and people, which created lots of poverty. And it has just such a distinct culture. And you can argue it even has a more distinct culture than some of the teams that have been part of non-FIFA in the past. So it's about time, I figured. Let's get it going, There are hotbeds of soccer as well that have been cranking out players and will continue to. There's a youth academy in Chattanooga right now, two actually, that are really on the up and up. So I'm really excited to see what players they can produce. Some of the best college soccer teams as well. Not that they all have players from Appalachia, but they have some players from Appalachia that are playing at an amazing level and really being developed amazingly. So that's one of the good parts about the NCAA college system here as well.
I totally agree, and it sounds like you have quite a strong foundation in place there. You obviously, as we've mentioned, you have the identity of the Appalachian people in the region. You've even got youth soccer developing as well, which is amazing. And you've got this great crop of players coming through. One thing that did spring to my mind when the question of being unrepresented came up, and, it's, I suppose, a question in two parts. Does Appalachia have a team representing them in the MLS or in the NASL or the upper reaches of that at all?
So right now there are 5 different professional teams in Appalachia, according to the borders that my federation has defined. And they all play at about the same level. We're looking at mainly the 3rd tier, but there is one pro team in the 2nd tier, that's Pittsburgh Riverhounds. But the rest are all in the 3rd tier. That's Chattanooga FC in MLS Next Pro. And then there's 3 USL League One teams. We have Greenville Triumph SC, Chattanooga Red Wolves, and 1 Knoxville SC. So you have 5 different pro teams here in Appalachia, and a lot of them do not have players that are here in Appalachia, but they are developing the next generation to hopefully change that. and there's a plethora of college teams, high school teams, and we were talking about the beauty here in the mountains. A lot of the teams in not necessarily the pro ranks, but in college soccer around here and high school soccer, they have really cozy stadiums surrounded by mountains that I think would be amazing to bring a tournament to showcase non-FIFA soccer here in Appalachia. It's just breathtaking, some of the views.
That would be incredible. And it's like you're explaining there, though, it's a really, really unique setting. And I think having grounds within that unique setting really adds to what you're trying to do, because obviously you're effectively trying to build a soccer association for an entire region that's never really had one before. The region has all of these different things going for it. And it comes back to what you said at the start. Why not? Why hasn't there been one? Why shouldn't there be one? At the very least, why can't we give it a go? And what I quite like as well is that there's this mentality behind it where it can only be players from the Appalachian region. I mean, have you thought anything about, and this is quite an interesting question, and it's one that I've not really asked anyone before, have you thought about, like jerseys? What colours would you wear? The badge? It's fascinating because you're just setting out how, what's your thinking process? What's your thought process? Where are you pulling these ideas from? Because I think it's a really, really good show of, an association's character and ideals, where they get their colours and their badge, etc. from.
Thank you so much. Yeah, actually, we have dove right into that. I wanted to shout out my friend Gilbert, who's volunteering. He has a graphic design firm called BAD Enough Designs, and I love the crest working together with him. So it's a hex sign, which is a very important part of Appalachian folk magic and art, which is a huge part of Appalachian culture. Appalachia is so unique, and I'm just fascinated by the culture here because I actually am a folklorist. So I'm fascinated about how like Appalachia has its own type of witchcraft, which you don't have that in Cascadia. You know what I mean? Cascadia is a hotbed for soccer, sure, but they don't necessarily have as rich of a culture as Appalachia, I would say. They can try to prove me wrong, but they might beat us on the field, but off the field, Appalachia has so much going for it in terms of culture, and we really tried to represent that with the hex sign logo. It has the A in the middle of it, which we're kind of playing off of, political symbols in the unrepresented world there, and also the inspired by Appalachian State University. They kind of have similar design elements in their crest, but also we're going with colors of barn red and forest green because these hex signs, you'll see them painted on a lot of barns. My parents have it painted on their shed even. Houses, you'll even see it painted on. But yeah, Appalachia has really cool folklore and straight up witchcraft. So, hey, we've got that going for the team already. So, no players, but we got witchcraft. So I love it.
No, I love it too, and yeah, I mean, as someone who is also very much into folklore and local history and local tales, folk knowledge, etc., etc., I think those things are really, really, they're almost underrated in a way when it comes to soccer clubs, because in every football team in the world, you have these folk tales essentially that get built around them. There might be a specific player who went on to do great things, or some of the stories that some of the people tell you in the stands from when they watched a match there 50 years ago, and it's turning these games and these matches that we all watch into folktales because it's talking about things that hugely exaggerated, and this guy could dribble through 8 defenders and nutmeg them all, etc. Do you know what I mean? So there is a folk aspect to football and the stories that people are told through football, and having this folklore aspect tied to the badge is amazing. And I really like how that's something that you're integrating into the association as well. We've touched on it so far, briefly, but what is the Appalachian identity?
Yeah, I tried to touch on that earlier in our interview. It's basically the art and music at the forefront of Appalachian culture. It's this kind of like they face a lot of adversity, kind of looked down upon. There's a lot of stereotypes about Appalachia. And that's a big reason why I think it needs a soccer team. It needs to battle it out, get some wins, get the community and region behind a team. One, to spread culture, spread the folklore. Storytelling is huge in Appalachia. It's tied with it's called Appalachian folk magic. That's the type of witchcraft that I was talking about. So there's little beliefs that are in certain parts of Appalachia that give, good luck to people. And in our case, our team, we're going to try to practice as much Appalachian folk magic as we can, bring that into the sport. And Appalachia also has a distinct dialect and slang in North and South Appalachia. And there's kind of the infighting between North and South Appalachia as well, which is kind of distinct. That can be fun in the locker room, I feel like. The distinct landscape. But, as the head coach of the team, I do want the team to incorporate Appalachia's identity on the field. And what that means to me is holding the team to high standards when it comes to resilience, work ethic, pride, grit, and creativity. I think that's going to be how we win, how we maintain our identity, and how to get the community loving the team. It's going to reflect the community as much as possible.
I love that. I think that's brilliant. It's great how you've got all these values and as you say, the core of the team's identity there. That's how you want them to play, and that's how they are going to represent Appalachia. Going back to what you said at the very beginning there, Appalachian people are very looked down upon, and that the impression that's painted of people from Appalachia and the region is, hillbillies, mountain men. That's the impression that we get over here. So I can imagine that in the United States, it's so much more worse. But within that, it does breed this type of mentality that comes with being people who are looked down upon, and it breeds this identity from it, which I think can be really, really important, especially when you're talking about sporting teams and clubs and things like that. Have you thought about where your national stadium might be? We'll go with that.
I have actually, this is a very new project, but I have actually looked into that. There's a growing long list right now of very beautiful stadiums. I haven't reached out to anyone yet, so I can't really get into it too much. But I will say Kessel Athletic Complex in Bradford, Pennsylvania, as well as Broome Community College in Binghamton, New York. If your listeners can look those up, they're kind of smaller stadiums, and who knows if the team will ever even have a home match. In the non-FIFA world, it's a lot of tournaments, and there's no other team near us. But I do want to challenge Cascadia, since they actually represent another mountain range on the West Coast. I do want to challenge them to a transcontinental cup. maybe do a home and away even. And that would be awesome for non-FIFA soccer to grow it here stateside and showcase the beautiful stadiums. They have beautiful stadiums too, with the Space Needle in the background out there. But yeah, I would love to rent one of those stadiums I named, and I can list off many more. But these are beautiful playing surfaces. They hold maybe a couple thousand people, and there's bigger, smaller ones, but who wouldn't love to watch a game or play a game in the middle of huge mountains? I mean, the fans are going to love that. People in Appalachia almost take it for granted, but it is breathtaking views at these stadiums. And I think that's really what the non-FIFA world loves. It's just so beautiful in Appalachia. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, spot on. Let's make it happen. I think that's the thing, though, is that with non-FIFA, point of it is that you're doing it for other reasons, and there's so much more behind it as well. And really, they're if anything, the non-FIFA tournaments are celebrations of all these different cultures and all these different peoples who have overcome adversity, struggle, erasure, and they've come together and they've made these football teams. So it's really, really great. But I suppose, that this obviously doesn't come without its challenges, but as you said, you're a few weeks old at the moment. You've obviously put a huge amount of thought behind this. It's clear that you've thought about this for more than 3 weeks, so it's great to see it come to fruition. But it's not just a case that this can happen overnight, unfortunately. And you've got things like trying to get players to buy into it, trying to get other stakeholders to buy into it, even things like logistically trying to find out if you can play in a certain stadium. I mean, there has to be loads of things that are a struggle for associations like yourself, who are unrepresented, trying to get set up.
There are, for sure. I'm glad that I have the experience I do. I've learned from my mistakes in the past. And also, I'm a small business owner now. So I have, I think, very valid experience to make this project a smashing success. Our main challenge right now is just figuring out who's going to wear the jersey. Renting a stadium like the ones I listed is pretty easy. You just call them up, pay the fee hourly, and then you get to play there. But yeah, travel and recruiting players is our main challenge. But that being said, this is a realistic project, 100%. I have connections in the soccer world nearby, and so it's just a couple degrees of separation until I can be talking directly with someone high up at one of these pro clubs even, or talking to, I'm not scared to contact a pro player's agent even, and, hopefully be able to pay them a stipend to represent Appalachia. And that goes for every player. We're hoping to pay our players. It's not going to be a living wage, unfortunately, at this level. But, besides giving them that resume boost and the honor to play for Appalachia, I do want to pay them or at least cover their travel costs. And I am fairly confident that I have the tools in my toolbox right now to fundraise pretty well. And also, my business is kind of taking off now, so I'm in a good place to commit as a general manager and head coach for the team as I add more personnel. But right now we have 2 volunteers already, and the federation's only been around for a few days. So we have enough members to properly register the organization here in Kentucky as a nonprofit, and that's going to open up a lot of opportunities for fundraising. So it's completely realistic. Even I can contact 3 or so amateur teams, ask for their best players, and right there, if they aren't too busy with their day job or what, we can totally send a team to London next year. I'm fairly confident the year following that we can have even a better team. So, if we don't get in next year, it's no worries. Conifa might get back on their feet. So, I don't really know what the entrance fee looks like, if there is one, because Unrepresented has not gotten back to me yet. But I know conifa is really affordable. And I totally see this team assembling here in the next year or two, if not sooner. So, first of all, thank you, Rory, for having me on your podcast right away after we launched. And hopefully, someone from nearby is listening and they can fill out the contact form. It's teamappalachia.wordpress.com. And, all the info's on there. We're trying to make this a smashing success and make Appalachia proud.
No, not at all. There's no need to thank me whatsoever. You can hear from what you're saying how passionate you are about it and how dedicated you are to making it a success. You've got all the tools, as you said. You've got all the kind of backing and all the things in place that you need to make it a success. And I don't see why there's no reason that you couldn't get a team out there next year to London if it's possible. It could happen, and it's unfortunate about conifa at the moment. Obviously, they've had their struggles themselves. However, Unrepresented Sports have obviously kindly stepped in, and it looks like it's going to be a really fantastic tournament next year. You've touched on it a little bit so far, and kind of just answered it with your last few sentences there. But long term, what's your ambitions for the project?
For sure. So long term, I definitely am aiming for the Federation to have a women's team and a men's team long term. And I'm hoping each team can average somewhere around 5 to 10 matches per year. Long term, that's the goal. But realistically, next year, if we can play, I think, if we win every game, in the tournament, it's only 6 games or so, I'm guessing. So if we can play, 7 or 8 games next year, I think that would be absolutely incredible. I would love for that to be in our budget. But the main goal right now is having 1 or 2 professional players on our squad. I think that's going to be a massive challenge to lure professional players. But we are building a prospective player pool at the moment with some really exciting names on there that I think we can have buy into the project. Cascadia seems like they are kind of like a pay-to-play team. So we might have to charge membership fees next year. I don't think it's necessarily going to be as bad as Cascadia's, but that's kind of our metric right now. We're trying to make it free and accessible. That's very important here in Appalachia, to make it accessible, more so than Cascadia. So to make it more accessible as time goes on, pay players more as time goes on, have more professional players. Also, the thing we're trying to do different is, like, next year would be an awesome opportunity with the tournament being in London. I literally want the players on our squad to all be in a place where they want to take their career to the next level as a player. I want to set them up with trials with teams in London that would be a good fit for them. I don't care if they have a game the same day with us. Like, go ahead, go meet with teams in London. If you want to play abroad, I think that is going to help players get interested in our projects because we want to see them succeed. I don't care if we win every game or whatever. I want to just kind of create that kind of family atmosphere where we can look 5 to 10 years from now and be like, that player would have never been playing pro in England or elsewhere if it weren't for this project. And that's a great way to spread Appalachian culture in itself, and it's totally in line with our mission. So, but we're just trying to go above and beyond, and that's how my club team that I started went about things as well. We were very, development minded. Unfortunately, the club I started did fold because I relocated. But if it weren't for that, that would have been viewed as a massive success. I brought a club team to my community where I was living at the time. It was called Providence Armada FC. And, I'll admit we only won about 2 or 3 games in our existence. We were around for a year. But I'm going to learn from my mistakes with that project. And having a national team per se is a completely different beast. We're facing completely different challenges, and we're not going to fall into the things that kind of held back that club team. But it is a part of my experience that I'm honestly proud of, even though it only lasted a year and wasn't a very winning team. But I still view it as a success, and I'm really excited for this next challenge and making it a way bigger success and helping more players than I have ever. So, and getting better players for sure. I was able to even sign a former professional player who played in Portugal and Iceland on that club that I started in the past. So I'm not scared to get our name out there in these circles and answer anybody's questions. If they're interested, go out and look at players throughout Appalachia and make this happen. I'm totally ready to go all in with this team.
I love the philosophy behind it. You're saying to players, look, if you join this team, we're going to London next year. That's your chance to be in the spotlight. Do you know what I mean? And it's fantastic. And it comes back to what you said there. You're spreading Appalachia through the world. And you never know, because eventually those players will say, well, actually, I'm not American, I'm Appalachian instead. And then there's this whole other dynamic starting. I think that leads me quite nicely on to the next question I actually had. What have you thought about the national flag is going to be for Appalachia? Is it the one that represents a bioregion? Is it ones that represent specific areas of the region? What's your thoughts behind it? Because I know it can be very difficult trying to get a flag either created or getting the backing for one, which is maybe unofficial, when you're not a nation per se.
Sure. And I'm going to say right away, I'm not a nationalist. This team is not based on nationalist values like some of the teams are. And I totally get that. We're going to be playing against teams that are nationalist. They're fighting for representation in that way. I totally understand that. And that's the thing, is we don't need a flag. There has been a flag created for Appalachia in the past. I don't think it looks that good, to be honest. We don't need a flag, though. We're not nationalists.
Yeah, I think that's entirely fair, and I think that kind of comes back to the whole core of your project, is that it's not about nationalism, it's not about drawing hard lines between yourselves and the rest of the country. It's about saying, this is who we are, we're a region that identifies differently to you guys, so we're having our own national team for it, but we're not going to be flying flags, we're not going to be doing anything based on that. It's about promoting Appalachia, promoting our culture, our identity, and what our footballers can offer as well. I can only hope that this time next year you guys will be going down to London, because it sounds like you're pretty much going full steam ahead for that to happen.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We want to be on that stage for Appalachia to celebrate. Like, the Appalachian region and culture needs more reasons to celebrate. And soccer is really growing in popularity. Like, I get Cascadia has a team, which is awesome. And the thing is, soccer in Cascadia they've had pro teams since the 60s, I'm pretty sure, out there. So they have had amazing soccer infrastructure, which Appalachia hasn't up until recently. The past few years, there's been less pro teams here. I'm glad to see there's more now, and they're doing awesome. So let's give Appalachia a reason to celebrate. Let's help the players here because there's very few Appalachian players in the pro ranks. I want to change that. And I want to make the world realize that Appalachia is here. The people are proud to be Appalachian. And they don't have to leave Appalachia to play soccer anymore. There's pro teams here. There's more soccer players coming out of the area. So I'm really excited to give Appalachia this exciting new project, and it's amazing to already have fans across the world. It's already getting the name out there. It's already happening. People are already asking for jerseys. Like, we have really cool jersey designs right now and awesome crests. I think that's a big part of luring the players onto a team, honestly, based on my experience. So I'm really excited when we get our first player filling out the contact form and sending out emails to recruit scouts. I'm really excited to see who we can land, because if we find a couple scouts with a team like Appalachian FC, who I must have you heard of them, Appalachian FC?
I haven't actually, no.
No way. So they are in one of the top amateur leagues right now called NPSL. And they have a stunning crest with Sasquatch on it. Because Sasquatch lives here, of course.
Wow, that is a great crest. I'll put it up on Twitter so our listeners can see. That is incredible. They've made it look so good as well. That's amazing. That's one of the best crests I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, me too. So we're trying to separate ourselves from Appalachian FC. That's why I didn't want to have the N on our name. I wanted it to be, it's called Soccer Federation of Appalachia. We have different colors, a different crest, just to not be on their turf. Don't want to confuse people either. But I 100% want to work with them and teams in that realm, like Asheville City, teams like Hickory FC that just started up. There are awesome amateur teams like them that are signing a lot of Appalachian players that are, a lot of them are around 19, 20 years old. But I see a lot of these players, because of teams like that, going on to do big things if they wish. It's very hard, obviously. A lot of Appalachian players haven't done that before, because it's so Appalachia as a territory is kind of loosely defined. Some people will say Birmingham, Alabama is part of it, but we officially do not consider Birmingham a part of it, it makes things a lot harder for us, because Birmingham has a pro team, has become a soccer hotbed, has players in Europe. So that's slightly a setback. But to counter that, we're saying you can live within how we define Appalachia for the past 3 years. And then I'm pretty sure, we're considering it right now, but I'm pretty sure we're also going to permit players to join the team who have had a parents been born in what we call Appalachia. So that's going to help grow our player pool a little bit, make it a little bit more FIFA-esque, and hopefully help with us not including Birmingham. But yeah, there's still so many good players out there. I'm about to send out emails to try to recruit scouts with teams like Appalachian FC, and all it takes is just a few scouts with these amateur teams, and I think we can field a solid team for non-FIFA soccer. There's huge disparity. We're going to be going up against teams, possibly like Marshall Islands or who knows. These are teams, Northern Cyprus. They're not necessarily teams that have more than one pro player, you know what I mean, or teams that are kind of playing at above like a fourth or fifth division level, sometimes even worse. And a lot of them are just there to celebrate their culture and not necessarily focus on team building, which I completely respect. This is a fun part of soccer, having non-FIFA organizations. But we definitely will be favorites to win the tournament if we get accepted. I'm just going to tell your listeners that right away, because Appalachian FC, Hickory FC, look at their numbers and look at their starting 11, how much of those players are from Appalachia. It's really great for the region what they're doing, and we're just going to build off of that and bring the players together for a common cause. And it's going to make their club game more exciting, more fun. Instead of viewing a player as a fierce rival, it's going to bring players together for the love of soccer. They're going to be shaking hands, giving hugs after the game when they face each other in the NPSL because they played for Team Appalachia. It's only going to help the sport and the region.
Yeah, I completely agree with you as well. You're so ambitious and you're driven, and it's clear that you want to make this happen, and you're going to make this happen. You have a full plan for it. All of the kind of heritage and identity aspects surrounding the club are they're what interests me the most, and you've got that down to a T, which is absolutely amazing to see. One last thing that I wanted to ask you is, when the time comes and Team Appalachia is ready to go, who would be your dream first fixture?
There are so many amazing settings and cultures in the non-FIFA world, but I think the most realistic fixture for us and most heated rivalry has got to be Cascadia. If they're still around, they've kind of been inactive for the past while, but it's got to be Cascadia. Yeah, I mean, if you go to our Twitter page, I did put together a kind of mock 32-team non-FIFA randomized tournament bracket, and it has us going up against Catalonia in the first round, which is highly unlikely because Spain Soccer Federation does not allow them to play a lot of games. Not that they can't have kind of a spin-off with a different name one day. I would love to see that. But yeah, that'd be a fierce matchup. They have a very impressive team, as do all of, because Spain is kind of a collection of autonomous communities like the Basque Country. I would love to play one of those teams, but I just wish that Spain would let teams like Catalonia play in non-FIFA tournaments, which they don't right now. I get, there's a lot of heated politics behind that decision. But yeah, I urge, a lot of your listeners to check out that mock fun thing we did on our Twitter page, because it really shows you, first of all, it's not guaranteed that we'll get into the tournament next year. They're only selecting 8 teams. But I figured, let's start up. Why not? Because conifa, we've seen in the past, due to mismanagement or what, like, they've had teams drop out last minute. And the thing is, we might get the call up last minute. They say, like, hey, we have troubles arranging visas for name some team. You know what I mean? That happens in the non FIFA world, absolutely. So we can step in if need be and assemble a team, easily just using players from a few amateur teams nearby, or calling up players who would love to have this kind of boost to their career. It's going to make soccer very exciting for the players that get called up to play for Appalachia, because your big part of it is you go up against such random teams that literally have players come out of the woodworks, every now and then, that can even be noticed by someone watching the game stateside because they're following our team. We might even bring them stateside and give them opportunity here with a club here. So it's really going to help non-FIFA soccer as a whole. It's going up against our team. It's going to make the other teams better for sure. And we're going to make lots of friends while doing it. So that's what I love about non-FIFA soccer. It's really low stakes, low pressure. We're out there. It's basically glorified friendly matches. You're there to just hang out, spread culture, and maybe win a fun trophy while doing it. So yeah, really, really excited for this project.
Yeah, I mean, non FIFA is only something that I've really, I suppose, discovered myself over the last few years. I think it goes without saying that conifa, at least their ideals and values, and unrepresented, and everything that the unrepresented clubs and World Cup represents, I think is probably the best thing about being a football fan. And if you're not paying attention to it or you haven't read into it, then you're really doing yourself a disservice, because it's football for the love of football. It's celebrating other cultures and it's bringing people together. And at the end of the day, I think that's all we can really ask for from the game.
Yeah, and that might sound to some people like, oh, we're all holding hands in a circle singing Kumbaya. But to kind of shut up the critics, look at the success stories
Exactly.
of non-FIFA. Gibraltar, right?
Yeah, Gibraltar, exactly. Huge one.
Gibraltar, yeah, there's plenty of others too that have used it as a stepping stone to join FIFA. That's not going to be our goal, but that's totally the goals of teams like Marshall Islands, and others out there. I mean, it's kind of a stepping stone for teams like that. They need a place to play. They're not always going to have FIFA teams accepting their invites to play friendlies. They're not always going to be, FIFA's highly political, so it's had massive success stories in the past, and anything we can do to help that, we're down.
Yeah, definitely. And is there anything else you want to add just before we finish up for tonight, Stevie?
Rory, it's been great talking with you. Thank you again. I urge anyone to, right now we got Twitter, follow us on there for updates. And then our website right now is teamappalachia.wordpress.com. And there is our contact form for press. You can reach out to us. Or we're also looking for volunteers, staff. Like I've got an assistant coach right now who might be joining us, but that position is still vacant. And also we're looking for scouts, like I said. And first and foremost, players. We have no idea right now who's going to play for us. So if you're within, there's a whole list above our contact form on teamappalachia.wordpress.com of where you need to be from, or one of your parents, or if you've lived there in the past 3 years. And even if you're in the fourth division, or you've only played in the NCAA Division III, or you're on the bench all the time for a third division team or whatnot, please do not hesitate to fill out that contact form. We're going to try to send the strongest team possible, but we need players right now. It's an amazing opportunity to help us out from the ground up and get involved. We want to win the cup. So I'm really excited. Keep your eyes on Appalachia, folks.
Definitely. We'll obviously put all those links out on our Twitter and social medias as well once the episode's out, so people can go and check you guys out. They can donate. So we'll certainly put everything out there so that people can see, of course. If there's something that you want us to cover, whether it's a topic that you think we might have missed, a lost club, a former stadium, a new association that's just been founded, or an association that hasn't yet managed to make its way into FIFA, then please do get in touch with us. You can find us on X. Our DMs are open. You can contact us at _footballheritage, or you can email us at hello@footballheritage.co.uk. We're always happy to have a discussion with people, especially when it concerns football, history, heritage, identity, culture, community, you name it, everything related to this. So please do get in touch if there's something that you feel we should be covering. But for now, Stevie, say goodbye.
Thank you.
And it's goodbye from me as well. We'll see you all again next week. Goodbye.